Do I need a producer? The answer is usually yes. But then it's how do I structure this deal, right? So the biggest mistake that I see is that filmmakers enter these partnerships just based on like loose convos, some vibes, a bit of shared excitement about what they're going to do with the film. But ultimately, there's no really clear terms around like ownership, decision making, back end profits, those sorts of things. So let's fix that by walking through these three core models and show you how to implement them. So number one is basically an equal partnership, right? 50-50 split down the middle. You both own the IP. You both have shared responsibility. You share in the profits. It's essentially a partnership, a co-production, an equal co-production, equal partnership. This is really the model that I recommend most often, and it's the one that I've used on every single film that I've produced. So any film that I've made, it's usually with a writer-director, and that writer-director has a production company, and they and I produce the film together, and we own everything 50-50. It's an equal partnership, also known as a co-production. It's not common though. This isn't how most producers, if you go and try and make a film with a producer, they're going to try and do it another way. I'm going to take you through that in this video, but this is the one that I recommend the most. The caveat is it requires you as a filmmaker to be a producer and to take on that responsibility when it comes to raising finance, when it comes to the liability, those sorts of things. So here's basically how it works. You both pool your resources, your contacts, and your funding efforts. So you're really both going at it together. It's not, hey, I'm going to do creative, I'm going to do, the business side. No, you're each spearheading those, but there's a lot of crossover in terms of you're both responsible for getting the film up. You each own 50% of the IP. So that's really important, right? You're owning the IP together, and this is a great way to do it if you want to build an asset in this industry, right? You want to build an asset that can generate income for you over the long term and hopefully make your career sustainable. Flip side is you take on the risk, you take on the liability, right? So if anything goes wrong on set, it's equally your responsibility. If anything goes wrong with the financing, it's equally your responsibility. There's no kind of shifting of that. You're both equally responsible for the risk. The upside is you both share the profits 50-50, right? So equal risk, equal reward. Usually your fees are balanced, right? So the producer, the director will usually get the same fee. Typically it's around 5% of the budget, could be anywhere from 4 to 7. And then if the if the director is also the writer, they might get a separate fee for the writing, usually around 3%. But the producer directing fees are the same. That way it's fair. Then any overheads that you charge or any back-end participation, any additional grant money that you might get, you basically just split any additional income that you as the producer or the producer would be entitled to, you split that down the middle. So I love this model because it's just a partnership, right? You're just going in it together. And so you both have skin in the game. You're aligned financially, you're aligned creatively. Like I said, I've produced, I think, more than 8 films in this way at this point. And it's just a really clean way to do it. There's no one feels like they're hard done by. Like, it's just very fair. Having said that, it's only ever worked where the relationship is based on mutual respect and shared goals, right? So it's very important at the start that you get very clear on what are you trying to do together, and there needs to be respect between both parties. So, you're basically going into a long-term creative marriage because, even after the film's done, there's reporting, there's accounts, money's going to be coming in years later. Like, you're going to really be in each other's business for a long period of time. So you need to choose wisely. These relationships can still go pear-shaped. I've certainly, I had one very early in my career that did just that. We had a partner who did something, that was not the right thing to do, let's just say. And so that, it broke down. But it's not easy when that happens because you're still you still own this film together, right? So the moral of the story is choose wisely. Second way to do it, unequal partnership, right? So this is where more control and profits go to the lead producer. So it's kind of where things diverge a little bit. In this kind of unequal scenario, that one producer takes the lion's share of the fees and the back-end profits. So they may even own the IP outright if the filmmaker has optioned it to them. So this is a scenario more likely where a director goes and pitches to a producer, and the producer wants to take on the project. They will likely option it. They will then own the IP. Filmmaker will get a fee and some back-end. That's typically how it's done, right? The way that I do it is quite unique. Not many producers would do it that way. This is the more kind of standard way to do it. Now, when this happens, the director usually doesn't want to be involved in fundraising. It's like they just want to direct. They just want to focus on the creative. They want to leave the rest of it to someone else. And that's fine, right? Like if that's what you want to do as a director, this is absolutely the model that you should take. In this case, the lead producer handles all the production work, all the legal work, and they are responsible for raising finance. They might still bring in EPs, associate producers, to kind of help them. And those types of producers would usually get a fee and a small back end, but no control or ownership of the project, right? So it's really that lead producer or production company that's owning the thing. So here's the thing. If you're not raising money on your film, then expect to give up most of the control. On the flip side, the best way to retain control and IP ownership of your project is to get your hands dirty when it comes to raising finance. And that's absolutely what I recommend. That is what I teach filmmakers in my accelerator program. It's literally how to step into that role of a producer and start raising finance yourself so that you can own more of this asset. So yeah, even if you just raise part of the budget, right, that's going to give you leverage. It keeps you in the conversation and kind of protects your influence over those key decisions that you want to make. So even just a little bit of finance can add a lot of leverage with producers. Having said that, for sure, if you just want to focus on the creative, this is the way you do it. You go team up with a producer, you pitch, you try and get them to option it, and then they run with it. Just be aware that, they're going to have a bunch of projects on their slate as well. So the trap here is your project goes into, a slate of a number of films and it gets stalled, right? So that's the other reason why you might want to do a more like a co-production with someone and actually raise finance. It's just so you can get the project moving yourself and you're not at the mercy of other producers. Obviously, I'm biased towards that model because that's the one that I use. Model 3 is basically just hiring a gun for hire. So this one is rare. I'm not sure that I've even seen it personally, but let's go through it because it's worth knowing. So basically, a gun for hire producer is just brought in to manage the production. They're paid a flat fee. They don't own the IP. They don't get back in. They just deliver the film. Now, actually, this is common in a production service company. So I have done this. So I made a film in Greece recently, a few years back now, actually. We hired a production service company over there. So they were basically a gun for hire. The person who ran it for that company got a co-producing credit. But they just got a fee. So they don't own the IP. They don't get back end. They're just responsible for producing, executing, and delivering the film. Now, you could use this model as an independent filmmaker if you've already financed the film, right? So that's really important. Like if you're self-financing the film yourself and you're putting up all the money, don't go and enter into an equal partnership with a producer because you've raised the money, you've come up with the IP, you've written the film. Like just hire someone to execute the production. So if you've already financed the film, this is a great model. And then basically you just need support executing the film. And it works great if you're self-funding or you're working on just a micro-budget film. And then, the last one would be if you just want to hire a production service company. So maybe it is a bigger budget film, you're the producer, but rather than, you then executing the entire production, you just want to hire a production service company to execute it. So basically what you get here is you get that production expertise without giving away any long-term ownership or revenue. You just want to make sure expectations are very clear in the agreement, and you want to be very clear about what happens if the film runs over budget and whose responsibility that is. So how you structure your producer relationships really affects everything, right? So like from who controls the project, how profits are shared, who bears the financial burden, who bears the risk and the liability if something goes wrong. There's no like one size fits all model, but there is a right fit for your situation, in my view, right? So just quick recap, equal partnership, 50-50 split. Usually, usually both parties are involved in and responsible for raising finance and taking on the risk. Unequal partnership is when one party carries on more risk and is much more involved in raising the finance, usually 100% involved, but they get obviously more reward. And the third one is a gun for hire, so flat fee, no back end or ownership. So if you want to stay in control, always start with having some sort of deal structure in place, right? That's the most important thing. It's just being really aware of what these three options are and choosing the right one that fits your situations and your goals and ambitions, and not just leaving it to chance. So let me know in the comments below like what kind of partnership you're considering, and I'm happy to weigh in. Also, if you want more actionable insights, I send out a weekly newsletter every Friday. It's called the Friday Filmmaker, and you can find the link to that in the description below. All right, that's it. See you on the next one.